Today we discussed about different types of respiration. The difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. First topic, difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic and anaerobic respiration. First, what is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration. In all cases, in all type of respiration, the first step is breakdown of glucose into 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate by the process called glycolysis. There are two types of respiration: mechanical respiration, that is breathing, and chemical respiration, that is also known as cellular respiration. We discussed about aerobic and anaerobic respiration. First of all, the topic, what is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration. In all cases, that is aerobic and anaerobic respiration. First step is the breakdown of glucose. The first step is the breakdown of glucose into 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate. The first case in aerobic and anaerobic respiration is the breakdown of 6 carbon glucose molecule to 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate. This process is known as glycolysis. Six carbon molecule glucose converted into pyruvate, 3 carbon molecules pyruvate. By the process glycolysis. This is the first step in two types of respiration, that is mechanical respiration, that conducted inside the cell. It is also known as chemical respiration. In case of aerobic and anaerobic respiration, that is cellular respiration, that is also known as cellular respiration. The first step of cellular respiration, glucose is split into pyruvate, 3 carbon molecule pyruvate. 6 carbon molecule glucose is converted to 3 carbon molecule pyruvate by the process of glycolysis. Then next, what is glycolysis? What is glycolysis? In anaerobic organism, glycolysis is the only process for respiration. In anaerobic organisms, glycolysis is the only process for respiration. Anaerobic organisms, that means living beings, organisms. Glycolysis is the only process. Glycolysis is the only process for respiration, for cellular respiration. It occurs in cytoplasm of cell and it is present in all organisms. Glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm of cell and it is present in all organisms. That means glycolysis is the common process for anaerobic and aerobic respiration, but in case of anaerobic organism, glycolysis is the only process for respiration. Glycolysis occurs in cytoplasm of cells, and that means glycolysis. It is present in all organisms. What is cytoplasm? If we draw a picture of animal cell, here we can see the nucleus. This is the cytoplasm with different types of cell organelles. This is cytoplasm. This is nucleus. Then what is protoplasm? Protoplasm means the cell, all cell content is known as protoplasm. That includes cytoplasm and nucleus. Cytoplasm is the content without nucleus is known as cytoplasm. This is the cytoplasm. Glycolysis occurs in cytoplasm of cells. Next, breakdown of glucose in yeast. Next topic. Yeast is an anaerobic organism. Breakdown of glucose in yeast. Here, the yeast is an anaerobic organism. Oxygen not required for this type of anaerobic respiration. It is an anaerobic process. In case of yeast, is an anaerobic process. Oxygen not required for this process. Anaerobic means oxygen not required for this process. Here glucose, that is 6 carbon molecule. Glucose is 6 carbon molecule. First step, glycolysis, that is common in all type of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Glycolysis. Form pyruvate. Pyruvate, that is 3 carbon molecule. Pyruvate is a 3 carbon molecule. Then the process continue. The first step complete. Then in next step, absence of oxygen. Absence of oxygen produce. Here pyruvate plus energy is released. Energy released. Last step, produce ethanol. Ethanol, that is 2 carbon molecule. Ethanol is 2 carbon molecules. It is also break down to form carbon dioxide and energy. This is the whole step of anaerobic respiration that occurs in yeast. First is common for all type of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Here glucose is split into pyruvate by the process of glycolysis. Again, absence of oxygen, pyruvate is converted to ethanol, that is 2 carbon molecule. Then last step, ethanol is break down to carbon dioxide and energy. This is the cellular respiration, anaerobic respiration of yeast. Next, this is the first type of cellular respiration. In second, here is also seen the respiration in muscle cells of animals. The respiration of muscle cells. Respiration occurs in muscle cells of animals. In muscle cells, here the first step is common. Glucose is converted to pyruvate. Glucose to pyruvate by glycolysis. Then pyruvate, that is 3 carbon. This is common in all type of air respiration. Here also release of energy. Then this pyruvate is converted to lactic acid. Lactic acid. It is also an anaerobic respiration. It is also an anaerobic respiration. Absence of oxygen or lack of oxygen. This pyruvate is converted to lactic acid, that is also a 3 carbon molecule, and energy is released. These two type of respiration is anaerobic respiration in yeast cells and also in muscle cells. Anaerobic respiration is occurs. The first step, glycolysis, is common in all type of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. In anaerobic, here is the anaerobic respiration. The first step, the splitting of glucose to 3 carbon molecule pyruvate. Then this pyruvate is converted to lactic acid. Absence of oxygen. Here the release of energy. Again here also release of energy. Lactic acid and the energy is released. This is the end product, lactic acid. Next, respiration in all aerobic organism. The third one is the aerobic respiration. Third type, in all aerobic organisms. We discussed 2 types of anaerobic respiration. Here is the ethanol and energy is the carbon dioxide and energy is the end product. Here ethanol is formed. Here we can see the lactic acid is formed. Lactic acid is formed. The third type is the aerobic respiration in all aerobic organism. That is, the respiration occur in presence of oxygen. That means the aerobic respiration. In all aerobic organism, first step is common. Glycolysis. Glucose converted to 3 carbon molecule pyruvate. Here energy is released. Then presence of oxygen. presence of oxygen, that means the aerobic respiration. The end product carbon dioxide, water and energy formed. This is an example of aerobic respiration. Here too anaerobic respiration. Here we can see the different products. Here the ethanol, here lactic acid, and this is the end product carbon dioxide, water and energy. Next topic. Common features of glycolysis. We discussed about glycolysis. Then common features of glycolysis. Next topic. Common features of glycolysis. What are the common features of the first step, glycolysis, in all type of aerobic and anaerobic respiration? First point, it is common to both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Glycolysis is the common step for both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. It is common to both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Next point, oxygen is not necessary. Oxygen is not necessary. In case of anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not necessary, but in case of aerobic respiration, oxygen is necessary. Commonly, oxygen is not necessary. That means in case of anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not necessary, but in case of aerobic respiration, oxygen is needed or necessary. Oxygen is not necessary. Not. Third point, it produces 2 molecules of NADH per glucose molecule. It produces 2 molecules of NADH per glucose molecule. In higher classes, you can learn the complete process of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Now this step is just mentioned. It produces, glycolysis produces 2 molecules of NADH per single glucose molecule or 1 glucose molecule. Fourth step or fourth point, glycolysis forms 2 ATP molecule per glucose molecule. Glycolysis forms 2 ATP molecule per glucose molecule. Glucose molecule, that means from 1 glucose molecule by the process of glycolysis forms 2 ATP molecule. Here we can see energy. This is the case. That means 2 ATP molecule of energy is released in every step after glycolysis. Two ATP molecule is formed after glycolysis in all cases. Next step, important points about aerobic respiration. Next topic, important points about aerobic respiration. First point, the final product of glycolysis, pyruvate, is transported from the cytoplasm to mitochondria. The final product of glycolysis. That is pyruvate. Pyruvate is transported to mitochondria from cytoplasm to mitochondria. Mitochondria is a cell organelle that's seen in cytoplasm. The glycolysis occurred inside the cytoplasm, we discussed. Then in case of aerobic respiration, the end product of glycolysis, that is pyruvate, is transported to one of the cell organelle, mitochondria. One of the cell organelle, mitochondria. This type of cell organelle that's seen in cytoplasm of all organisms except virus. Next topic about aerobic respiration or point, complete oxidation of pyruvate by the step-by removal of all the hydrogen atoms, leaving 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. Complete oxidation of pyruvate by the stepwise removal of all the hydrogen atoms, leaving 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. Here this is the aerobic respiration. Here we can see carbon dioxide molecule is one of the end product. In case of aerobic respiration, complete oxidation of pyruvate by step-by removal of hydrogen, leaving 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. Next topic, important points about fermentation. Important points about fermentation. Fermentation that's seen in yeast. It is also in one type of anaerobic respiration. Fermentation is anaerobic respiration. The important points about fermentation. Fermentation is an example of anaerobic respiration. First point, which does not require oxygen. It is anaerobic, so which does not require oxygen. Does not require oxygen. Second point, fermentation produce different products. Fermentation produce different products. That means maybe ethanol or lactic acid. In case of yeast cell, ethanol is the end product, and in case of muscle cells, that is lactic acid is the product. Fermentation, that is the anaerobic respiration that occurred in muscle cell, also known as fermentation. Fermentation produces different products. It may be ethanol or maybe lactic acid in case of muscle cell. Lactic acid. Next, ATP. What is ATP? Energy stored in the form of ATP. It acts like a cell, that is a battery. Like battery, ATP is the energy source of all organisms. We discuss about ATP. ATP means adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. ATP means adenosine triphosphate. It is the energy currency for most cellular process. ATP is the energy currency for most cellular process. It is the energy currency for most cellular process. If energy released during respiration and the phosphate molecule detached to form ADP. If in case of energy release, energy release, ATP adenosine diphosphate. In case of energy release, ADP adenosine diphosphate plus one phosphate molecule. One phosphate molecule is detached from ATP to form here energy is released. In case of energy release, all cellular activities need energy. The energy is stored in the form of ATP. If energy is utilized or released from ATP molecule, form ADP plus phosphate plus energy. The binding energy of phosphate molecule with ATP is detached and energy is released. Then if energy is stored in ADP molecule, what happened? The ADP, one of the phosphate molecules attached to adenosine diphosphate to form ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Here energy is stored. Energy stored in mitochondria. Here energy released from mitochondria. If the terminal phosphate linkage of ATP is broken, here, if the terminal phosphate linkage of ATP is broken, the energy equivalent to 30.5 kilojoule per mole is released. The releasing energy, that is about 30.5 kilojoule per mole. Such energy used in various activities like muscles contraction, nervous impulses, protein synthesis, etc. This releasing energy is utilized for various cellular activities like muscular contraction, nervous impulses, protein synthesis, etc. Next topic. Here we discuss about unicellular yeast cell and in case of different animal cases. Next topic, the respiration in case of plants. Respiration in case of plants. Cellular respiration in case of plants. Plants also need oxygen for aerobic respiration. Plants are the multicellular green colored organisms. Plants also need oxygen for aerobic respiration. Plant exchange gases through stomata. We discussed about the stomatal activities in previous classes. It is by the process of diffusion. We already discussed about diffusion, the process of gaseous exchange in previous sessions. Plants need oxygen for aerobic respiration. The gaseous exchange occurs through the stomatal pores that are seen in leaves. What is diffusion? Diffusion is the movement of gases and solid particles from their higher concentration to lower concentration is known as diffusion. oxygen is needed for aerobic respiration. The gaseous exchange. Through stomata. The process is known as, the process of gaseous exchange is known as diffusion. Next, factors affecting diffusion. Factors affecting diffusion. Factors affecting gaseous exchange. Diffusion is the movement of gases and solid particles from their higher concentration to lower concentration. What are the factors affecting diffusion? Temperature, humidity, light intensity, speed of wind, stomata are the pores that are seen in leaves and some tender parts. Leaf structure, water availability, etc. Water availability, etc. are the factors affecting diffusion, that control diffusion, gaseous exchange. Then, difference between light reaction and dark reaction. In case of plants, here light and dark reaction are the different steps of plant respiration. In case of plant respiration, we can see two steps, that is light reaction and dark reaction. What is the difference between light reaction and dark reaction? First, light reaction. Light reaction occurs in thylakoid membrane of chloroplasts. Light reaction occurs in thylakoid membrane of chloroplast. In light reaction occur in thylakoid membrane of chloroplast. We just draw the picture of one chloroplast molecule, that is one of the cell organelle that only seen in plant cells, that not seen in animal cells. Chloroplast is a cell organelle that is seen in only in green plant cells. If we just draw the picture of the cell organelle, we can see the grana thylakoid and this is the fluid part stroma. Here the light reaction occur in these thylakoids. The light reaction occur in thylakoids and dark reaction occur in stroma. Light reaction occur in daytime and dark reaction occur in night. The light reaction occur in thylakoid membrane. Here these are the disc shaped grana and green pigment seen. Chloroplast, chlorophyll is the pigment that's seen in this chloroplast. Here is the fluid stroma. Light reaction occur in grana thylakoids and dark reaction occur in the fluid stroma. Second point, light reaction depends on sunlight. Depends on sunlight. Chlorophyll is the pigment involved in this process. Chlorophyll is the green pigment that's seen in grana. Oxygen is liberated by light reaction. Oxygen is liberated by light reaction. ATP and NADP. ATP and NADPH are the products. Are produced in light reaction. This light reaction occur in grana thylakoids. Light reaction occur in daytime. Chlorophyll pigment is necessary. Oxygen is liberated and product ATP and NADPH after light reaction. What about dark reaction? Dark reaction. It occurs in stroma of chloroplast. That is the fluid part of chloroplast. Occurs in stroma of chloroplast. Does not depend on light energy. Does not depend on sunlight. No pigment involved. No pigments involved. Carbon dioxide is fixed. Carbon dioxide is fixed. Plants absorb carbon dioxide from atmosphere. In dark reaction, this carbon dioxide is fixed as a part of this detailed dark reaction. Carbon dioxide is fixed. Glucose is produced by using energy from ATP and NADPH. Glucose is produced by using the energy from ATP and NADPH. That is the ATP and NADP are the end product of light reaction. First the light reaction occurs and then the dark reaction occurs. There are two steps in the plant respiration. We already discussed about cellular respiration or chemical respiration in plants and animals. Then we discuss about mechanical respiration, that is breathing. Respiratory organs of different organisms. Here, intake of oxygen and expel of carbon dioxide through respiratory organ is known as breathing. Intake of oxygen and release or repel of carbon dioxide through respiratory organ is known as breathing. Intake of oxygen and expel of carbon dioxide through respiratory organ. Is known as breathing. Here there are different types of breathing organs or mechanical respiratory organs seen in different organisms. In case of fishes, the breathing through gills. Earthworm through skin, that is also known as cutaneous respiration. Frog. In case of tadpole, it is through gills, and in adult it is through skin. Through gills in larva or tadpole case, and skin and lungs in case of adult. Insects, tracheal tubes, breathing through gaseous exchange through tracheal tubes. In spider, through book lungs. Spider through book lungs. Human, in case of human, through lungs. Next topic, human respiratory system. Next topic, human respiratory or breathing system. Respiratory system, it is through lungs. Here we can see the different parts of respiratory system. Nasal passage, pharynx, larynx, nasal passage, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, branches bronchioles, and the last alveoli. These are the parts of human respiratory system. Nasal passage, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. Fine air inside the fine hairs. Fine hairs seen inside the nasal passage and also the mucous lining of nasal passage filter the air. The fine hair and mucous membrane that seen in nasal passage filter the air. The cartilage ring of throat. The cartilage ring of throat, trachea and bronchi that ensure free air passage. The cartilage ring protect the respiratory tract from collapsing. Cartilage ring of throat ensure that the air passage does not collapse. Here we can see the incomplete cartilage rings in trachea and bronchi. Alveoli. Alveoli provide surface area for gaseous exchange. Alveoli provide surface area for gaseous exchange. These air sacs surrounded by blood capillaries. These air sacs surrounded by blood capillaries. Alveoli provide surface area for gaseous exchange. These air sacs surrounded by blood capillaries. If the muscles of diaphragm, here we can see the diaphragm. The muscle of diaphragm and intercostal muscles that seen in between ribs. The intercostal muscles that seen in between the ribs. The intercostal muscles and the diaphragm. Seen in between ribs contract. If the diaphragm, the muscular diaphragm and intercostal muscles contract, the thoracic cavity increases. The thoracic cavity increases. Air sucked into the lungs and fill the expanded alveoli. Hence, oxygen from alveolar air take up by blood. The blood vessels surrounded by the alveoli. The oxygen from alveolar cavity transferred to blood and carbon dioxide is transferred into alveoli. The muscles of diaphragm and intercostal muscles seen in between ribs contract. The thoracic cavity become increased. Air sucked into the lungs. Air sucked into the lungs and fill the expanded alveoli. Hence, the oxygen from alveolar space or alveolar air taken up by blood and transfer carbon dioxide from blood to alveoli. The gaseous exchange take place in alveolar surface area. The blood capillaries is formed by unicellular squamous epithelium. Thin squamous epithelium. The gaseous exchange take place inside the alveolar cavity and blood in the capillaries. The oxygen is transferred into blood and from the blood carbon dioxide is transferred into alveolar surface or alveolar space. The respiratory pigment known as hemoglobin. The respiratory pigment is known as hemoglobin. Hemoglobin seen in RBC, red blood corpuscles. RBC carry oxygen to tissues. Carry oxygen to different body part tissues or cells. Hemoglobin has very high affinity to oxygen. Hemoglobin is very high affinity to oxygen. Oxygen is two oxygen molecules bind with single hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. Carbon dioxide more soluble in water. Carbon dioxide more soluble in water. So mostly dissolved in blood plasma. Blood plasma is the fluid part of blood. Carbon dioxide mostly dissolved in blood plasma that contain excess water. Plasma carry carbon dioxide. Plasma carry carbon dioxide from tissues to alveoli. The respiratory pigment hemoglobin that is seen in RBC of blood carry oxygen to tissues. Hemoglobin has high affinity to oxygen and combine to form oxyhemoglobin. Carbon dioxide more soluble in water, so mostly dissolved in blood plasma and carry carbon dioxide from tissues to alveoli. Very less quantity of carbon dioxide carried by hemoglobin. Very less carbon dioxide carried by hemoglobin. Now we complete today's session. If you like this session, please like, share and subscribe our channel.